There is an extreme right wing in the Republican Party that is like the party of Trump, and I feel like that's like 75% of Republicans. Like unironically, I think that like 70+% of Republicans would like, if Trump would run again, that they would get him through the primary, 100%. Feels like this weird thing has happened in these like online spaces where the more extreme version of whatever political camp you're in, no one can really say anything bad about it, so everybody slowly moves to that position. Like, imagine you're like, dude, these are so damn Twitter. I'm not gonna lie. When I'm on vacation and I'm chilling in a hot tub and I see crazies on Twitter, sometimes you just gotta let loose, okay? I'd be lying to you if I told you it didn't feel good, okay? But did you see the no gamer words were used, okay? Calm down. Not that crazy, alright? The Serfs. Some loser named Jessica. Dude, I think that indigenous Canadian shit is like, if you want to go out and virtue signal on Twitter, you get some big points on that. This person tweets out, and she's like, wow, I wake up and every day a new friend is murdered by the RCMP, the something mounting police or whatever. She's like, my friend got shot by cops for 3 times, pulled over for driving indigenous. It's so horrible. And like, all you have to do is like Google search the story, and her, apparently her friend got flagged for having a warrant, and when the cops tried to pull them over, they fled, and then when they found them in a parking lot, they wouldn't come out of the car, so they boxed him in and then tried to get him out of the car, and then when they sent a dog in, the person in the car stabs the dog to death, and then stabs the fucking officer that handles the dog, and then gets shot. Why are you acting like your friend was just like, why are you acting like your friend is like this like huge victim that like got pulled over for like, oh my god. Guys, listen. I'm trying to disassociate from these crazy lefties online, okay? I'm in a fucking head spin right now. I come out in the real world, and these motherfucking conservatives are crazy, okay? Me and Dan hop in a goddamn Uber. This guy's talking to us about how the fucking Simpsons predicted 9/11, and about how Trump was real as fuck, and the deep state is destroying everything, unironically. And this guy was like, would he be Mexican? Are there a lot of Mexicans in Miami? He could have been Cuban, but he was like very clearly Hispanic.
I feel like I've outpaced him intellectually.
English was like a second language. This wasn't like some redneck dude, okay? This was a Hispanic dude, probably speaks Spanish fluently, thinks that like the deep state and all that shit is fucking insane. And then I talked to my mom a little bit because I got food with her yesterday. My mom won't get the vaccine because she thinks that like hundreds of thousands of people have taken it and died. And she thinks that she says she wants to try putting a magnet on my dad's arm in like a few months because he had to get it because he's got like a security job. So my mom's not getting the vaccine. And then I come back online on Twitter and I've got people that unironically are deers who talk about death threats they're getting because people are making dumb deer hunting jokes. And then I've got BadBunny,
fucking dubstep,
aka the N-word queen.
Really hyped for the upcoming Lefty Arc Part 5. Wide people happy.
Somebody should make a bot so that anytime BadBunny tweets about me, I think that, or actually anytime BadBunny tweets ever, I think that there should be a bunch of, there should be like a bot that just auto replies on her threads with all of her logs of saying the N-word and the F-word. And I think the language, the most effective language, it shouldn't be like she said this and deleted it. It should be BadBunny made all these mistakes in the past. She hasn't apologized for it yet, so it doesn't seem like she's moved on from it. And when she was confronted with it, she wiped her Discord and everything. And she hasn't acknowledged her wrongdoing, right? You have to talk past the sale. Don't say like, BadBunny, did you do this? Instead, it's BadBunny, why haven't you acknowledged the wrong you've done? I think that'd be really funny to include that. I think it's unbelievable that Jenna lost her partnership for saying one racy joke, and like before she was even partnered. And BadBunny's had her partnership the whole time, and I just said the F word, the N slur. She had like, what was it, like 200 instances? It was like 15 pages of her calling people the F word in her Discord or whatever. That's insane. Doesn't that make you look obsessed though? No, the bot would be obsessed, not me. Like every time anything happens to me on Twitter, like all of these like invertebrate fucks like come slithering out to like start like screaming, and BadBunny is one of those. The crazy thing is that like we've had family die from the coronavirus. We have like an uncle, Nemesito, and then I don't know the relation, but I think it's my mom's uncle and aunt, because his 2 siblings, I think, they died of the coronavirus, and he almost died from it. What the fuck? I don't understand. There might be side effects, like, Mom, you have asthma. You're like 65 years old. The side effect for the coronavirus might be dying. Are you serious? Fuck, I was asking her questions. Dude, my mom will just like rattle off like every conservative conspiracy. Fuck, Melina would have to ask what we were talking about. Like, she thinks like China invented the coronavirus. She thinks that it's like made in China and sent to the US to fuck with us. I think she thinks all the variants are fake. I think I have a really good idea of how people end up where my mom is, and I see it happen like on all sides of the internet. I think that like I feel like most people maybe know this, or maybe people don't know this. Like, I think that it's very easy to. Oh my god, my mom. I didn't even know about this, so I got caught off guard, I guess. Apparently, there was some riot or demonstration when Trump had to go into his bunker. Did they burn down a church or something? Apparently, my mom was talking about how there was a horrible riot in D.C. and they burned down that church across the street from the White House, and how that was some real shit. But the White House, the January 6th riots, that was just Antifa. And like none of that was actually conservatives. You need to explain how people end up like your mom. I think that you just need like a few little pieces of information, misinformation spread, and then if you get like these itty bitty pieces of misinformation planted, it's really easy that people will start to connect them in certain ways, and you can get lost in a whole other world of fact. And like, I'm really curious. My guess is that you're like any person is like 5 pieces of misinformation away from being in a totally different world. I genuinely believe that. I believe that the left online does this right now about as much as the right does as well, by the way. The only difference is that the alternate realities that the left creates are a little bit more close to the real world than the alternative realities that the right creates. So, for instance, I do believe that there is systemic injustice in our current legal system, but left-leaning people will have you believe that like every time a black person is pulled over, like cops are looking to murder them, right? So that's like it's a different world, but it's a little bit closer to reality than like right-leaning people who think that like black people just try to like kill or whatever crazy shit. I don't know what they say. I don't want to misrepresent any viewpoints, but is there one thing that connects all these people into going down the conspiracy shit? Yes, actually. It's going to Destiny, come on, they're on completely different levels in terms of wrong. If you want to moralize it, sure, but factually, no. And I mean, like, we've watched it happen over and over and over and over again. My mom was repeating some pieces of misinformation that left-leaning people spread. For instance, I remember my mom saying the police opened the gates to let the protesters into the Capitol. A lot of left-leaning people were retweeting that. We watched left-leaning people retweet the thing about the one cop saying Blue Lives Matter to the people. It never happened. We've seen like a whole bunch of misinformation being retweeted. We've seen people. Everybody retweets misinformation. This isn't like a satisfying solution, but like the best thing that could happen for like the media environment right now is all forms of alternative media should be completely banned, and only like the mainstream publications can fight against each other doing it. But that's like really shitty because obviously there are other biases there. But I think that alternative media has already destroyed. That includes people like me, even like on Twitter, Twitch, on YouTube, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I think that like alternative media has destroyed people's realities. It's completely shifted them into totally different realities. And I don't know how you like bring somebody back from that, because once you get hooked into that alternative media cycle, you've got to imagine you're literally like you're getting the real facts. Like, you know things that no one else knows. You're getting the real truth, the real story, right? Why would, like, anytime anybody tells you otherwise, you know they're part of, like, a conspiracy, they're brainwashed sheeple, like, you know. I think the whole making a story to points can be really powerful. Yeah, I notice this more, or this is, like, materialized a lot more for me, too, when I look at how, what was it in relation to? Oh, when I argue with people like Rob Noor and conspiracy theorists, something that you have to listen to is people will assert conspiracies, but they'll only do it with like discrete points of evidence that aren't actually evidence for a conspiracy. So like, here's an example, okay? Let's say that I want to say that Mrs. Johnson is poisoning students in the classroom. Normally, if you're looking for evidence of a conspiracy like that, let's say for a police investigation, we want to find some evidence that Mrs. Johnson has like put poison into the food, put poison into some water, has infected their desks, right? Like that's normally what we're looking for. But that's not how people online will approach the story. Instead, what they're looking for is, was Mrs. Johnson ever in the classroom with students that got sick? Yeah? Well, that's point one. Number 2, like, has Mrs. Johnson ever gotten in trouble in the past with the school for doing anything bad? Yeah, she did. Well, that's point 2. Like, point 3 might be, has Mrs. Johnson, like, ever been sick in the past? Yeah. I mean, boom. Now you're done. That's like, and now you actually got the story, and you can spread that, right? Like, Mrs. Johnson is making students sick in school. First of all, 85% of people have already just read the headline and they're done for whatever dumb meme or story you're making. Then for the people that do read on, it's like you can take a couple of descriptive facts or discrete facts and put them together, and then people are like, oh, well, Mrs. Johnson was in there. The students got sick. She's gotten in trouble at school before. She's gotten sick before with the same disease the kids had. Like, she's poisoning students, right? Like it all flows like very naturally. Rob, if you ever listen to Rob Noor, be careful because he's a very crafty guy. But if you ever listen to Rob Noor debate, he's really, really, really good at doing this. Where he'll take like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little discrete facts, but he'll weave them all together into a tale. But the tale that he asserts, the conspiracy that he asserts, he actually has no evidence for. There's zero evidence for that. But he's got a lot of underlying descriptive facts that sometimes are true, or at least true enough, and then he spins the story to bring them all together, right? Destiny only pushes this. The left does this just as much disinfo as the right thing to appease his audience. Leftists have stupid positions all the time, but right-wingers don't understand anything that works. The reason why I do this, the reason why I say it like that, is the same reason why I say, like, I don't think that we should view Nazis as, like, evil monsters, right? People that were turned into Nazis in the 40s, the 30s and 40s, were just like normal people, right? The reason why it's important to view it that way is because if normal people can be pushed to do those types of things, then it's not outside the realm of possibility that anybody could be pushed to do those types of things. So when I say that misinformation happens equally on the left and right, 1, there is a lot of misinformation on the left, but 2, it's not like there's a special conservative brain that makes them more susceptible to misinformation than anything else. It's a very human thing. It's a human problem that everybody has to deal with and everybody has to work on. It's not just like a conservative versus liberal thing. It's something that everybody needs to be aware of and everybody needs to be protected from. Because holy fuck, there was a lot of misinformation that gets spread on the left too. I agree with you with Destiny, but I still think right-wingers are several deviations off. If you include Jimmy Dore and those sorts of people as part of the left, I agree with you that it's just as bad. Yeah, I don't like to say just as bad, but I don't like to make it sound like when I say that there's a big difference, then it's like, oh, people are like, oh, okay, left-leaning people are fine. It's only right-wingers that do it. No, everybody on the internet does it. Everybody on the internet does it. It's insane. If you want to dig into if you want to say like the QAnon of the left shit, just start asking what happened to Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020, and then you're very quickly getting into Q levels of takes. You are reaching Republican levels. You're reaching Trump fan levels of like mental dysphoria when you start asking them what happened to Bernie. The elections were rigged. The entire establishment was rigged against. Who did I just talk to that said that? Was it was Maxine? What was the lady that leaked some of the questions to Hillary's camp? She shouldn't have done it. But people were like, oh well, if that happened one time, then you better believe it happened over and over and over and over again. It's like, wait, hold on. When people said that, like when Pete Buttigieg's wife's best friend was like friends with the CEO of the parent company that owned the company that made that shadow app, we were like, Pete Buttigieg rigged Iowa. Like, it's actually like it is on that level of QAnon. Like, I'm sorry, but it is. The problem is that this is assumed, but outside of Trump, not many outright false shit is being spread. Tucker doesn't go on Fox every night and just straight up lie. He slants the facts and creates misinformation, not false truth. True. Trump is very unique. Trump was like I don't know. Trump was just very, 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 very unique. He was a populist that got way, way, way too far. Yeah. Do you think left-wing people are capable of doing January 6th stuff? I don't know. I think everybody's capable, but Trump was just a different breed of insanity. I feel so bad. I don't really feel bad. A little. I feel like 10% bad and 90% funny because they really earned it themselves. But the Republican Party is truly fucked. The Republican Party is truly, truly, truly fucked. Holy shit. The problem is like there is an extreme left wing in the Democratic Party, but it's like maybe 5% of voters. Maybe if you count the really blue areas, maybe like 10 or 20%. And that there is an extreme right wing in the Republican Party that is like the party of Trump. And I feel like that's like 75% of Republicans. Like, unironically, I think that like 70+% of Republicans would like, if Trump would run again, that they would get him through the primary, 100%. Which is just, it's so fucked for the Republican Party. Because, and again, I don't really feel bad for them, but none of the Republican lawmakers want that. They don't want Trump because he represents like a huge instability, a huge liability, a big threat to the system. And I don't mean like the system like, oh, like the system that's trying to keep you down. I mean like the system like the rules and laws that keep this country functioning. Like, yeah. How would you describe yourself politically? Like, how would you live with yourself if you had to? I don't know. I'd suck them, I guess. It feels like this weird thing has happened in these like online spaces where you get like the more extreme version of whatever political camp you're in. No one can really say anything bad about it, so everybody slowly moves to that position. Like, imagine you're like in some left-leaning group, and all of you guys are like 15 an hour, 15 an hour, 15 an hour, and all of you are like 15 an hour, 15 an hour, and then somebody in the group is like 20 an hour. Nobody is going to call that person out and be like, wait, that's too much. Nobody will say anything. And eventually, more and more people will join them. And then eventually the whole group is like 20 an hour, 20 an hour, 20 an hour, 20. And then somebody in the group is like 35 an hour? Nobody's going to call them out because they're still in your camp. They're just like even more over in that direction. It's like 35 an hour, 35 an hour, 35. And then eventually like the whole group is like that. And then if you're somebody that was like in the beginning, you were like, man, 15 an hour, that's already really hard.
If some Republicans are so afraid Trump will collapse things, why didn't they just vote to impeach him so he couldn't run again?
Because the Republican lawmakers, because it's like I said, now you're probably really confused, but if you take the destiny view of things, it's actually incredibly simple. Why didn't the Republican lawmakers just vote to impeach? Well, it's hard to imagine, maybe they really did want him there, maybe there's a conspiracy, blah, 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 blah. But if you look at the destiny world, well, actually, they just want to get reelected, and most of their constituents love Trump, so they're going to side with Trump. I think it's as simple as that. Most of the Republican lawmakers, and you can see this because there are some that fucking hated Trump. Okay, look at Lindsey Graham. All right, this guy fucking hated Trump. He said it before. He was like, "Fuck, what did he?"
My party is going bat crazy.
And I don't think he has the temperament and judgment to be commander in chief. You know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell. Donald Trump is the most unelectable Republican I've seen in my lifetime. He's not fit to be president of the United States. The Republican Party has been conned here, bringing out the worst in us. Disparaged women, opportunistic religious bigotry, race baiting, xenophobia. He's a jackass. No, I don't think he's a xenophobic, race baiting, religious bigot as president. You don't have to run for president and be the world's biggest jackass.
I think he's a kook. I think he's crazy.
You know what concerns me about the American press is this endless attempt to label the guy as some kind of kook, not fit to be president. I don't believe he's a Republican. His policies are really bad for the country. I'm going to try to help our president, Donald Trump, be as successful as possible because, number one, I agree with him mostly. I like the president. I want to help him. I hope he's successful. Trump's foreign policy is a complete disaster. I think this strike was a game changer. There's a new sheriff in town. What President Trump has done is historic, deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and then some.
Man, he said some really bad things about Trump. A lot of people did. But they, but like, they're not going to vote against him because they know that if they do, they're losing their election. And they want to be elected again. So they have to do what their constituents want. If Trump runs again, it's a free win for Democrats? I don't know. Maybe? Trump got a lot of votes. Trump got, I believe, right? Trump got the second most votes in the history of any president in the United States. Do you think future presidential candidates will outpick Trump? Who knows? We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I think that people. It's going to sound like I'm just saying this because of my personal fighting on the internet, but like, I think that a very scary thing that the Democratic Party has to get in check is I think that the more left-wing version of the Democratic Party is probably the biggest threat right now to, in like maybe not 2022, maybe 2024, because the thing that's really scary is that I feel like the Democratic Party has less of a guaranteed hold on minority voters, and the huge like ACAB stuff I think was pretty detrimental in a lot of different cities, the ACAB and the socialism stuff, because you have to remember a lot of minority voters, Hispanic and black voters, can still be pretty socially conservative. And if you start to lose your grip on them and the Republicans start to eat up and gobble up a whole bunch of those voters, oof, that is really, really, really scary. And I think that it was a lot of minority votes for Trump, more than people thought. I think a couple important things have to start happening in the on the left is man, I think this is gonna sound so mean. I realize more and more every day that my like lived background is so much more real than so many people online. You try and make some black and Hispanic friends sometimes, because like I feel like people online have very weird views of how like Hispanic and black people function. That's just like an opinion, an impression I get. I've said this a lot on stream, but like Hispanic and black people are very conservative. I'm generalizing, by the way, but Hispanic and Asian families too are pretty like socially conservative. I'm generalizing, but like even in places in my very limited experience, but even in my lived experience in places like San Francisco and LA, that's very left leaning. Even in those places, the families tend to be like pretty socially conservative, way more than like the average like gay hippie whatever you would expect like a white person to be like in these areas. Indians in general too, yeah. Young white America is way more progressive than probably any other part in the world, and like young white Americans spend so much time shitting on all of America. I think that they forget that sometimes. Like, there are still like, I'm going to generalize again, and if anyone in chat thinks that I'm wrong, feel free to tell me. But I have a hard time imagining that there's like these huge like trans parades and marches and the acceptance at the same level in like Southern Europe, like in places like Italy, Spain, Portugal. Like I would be surprised if like that type of shit is anywhere. I say that type of shit, not like it's a bad thing, but if like those types of movements are probably not anywhere near as common as like in the United States. When it seems like I noticed this for America, there's like 2 countries in the world, or maybe 3 or 4 countries. You've got one is the United States of America, and then 2 is the country of Europe. But when you say Europe, you're actually really only talking about like Sweden, Norway, and like maybe like Western Germany. And that's like it. That's Europe. Not even the UK anymore. That's Europe. Like that's Europe to the average American. No one says fuck anything about Eastern Europe, which has its whole own set of problems. Nobody says anything about Southern Europe, which is cool, but is not Northern Europe. And then like you have to go like off of mainland Europe to get to even the countries that these people are even talking about. Yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, and then the other 2 countries are like the country of Africa and South America are the same thing, and then China. It's like Eastern Germany is not that bad. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to say that any of these places are bad. I could be wrong because it's been a long time since I've looked at this. Weren't there more backlashes in Eastern Germany? Isn't it even that big compared to Western Germany? But I thought that there were more backlashes in that area with the inflow of like the immigrants from the 2013 shit. I'd have to go and look up where the AfD got all of its support or whatever. There was more of a backlash in that part of the country versus the western part. But I could be wrong about that. I have to go back and look that up again.
Destiny, how do you deal with the fact that extremists never believe any cogent argument put forth and just continuously present false claims that you have to endlessly refute? What's the point?
Because I don't think they really believe in any individual claim. It's just a broader narrative that they believe in. And then the facts have to fit the narrative, right? If you've collected 5 or 6 or 7 different fact points and then you've like built a narrative around them, then anything that's outside of that gets discarded for some reason. And there's always a reason to discard it. Maybe it's the deep state, maybe the media is lying, maybe it's whatever. And then everything else you'll find some way to fit it neatly. Man, dude, I listened to Rush Limbaugh do this for so long. He was really good at weaving these types of stories. He was really good at it. I don't know if anybody on the left would ever get to the level that Rush Limbaugh was at. Man, that guy was so good. People in the Rush Limbaugh world, that was like a totally different world. In Peru, we had 2 different lefties run for presidency. A progressive socked them in an ML that hates LGBTQ plus people and say that women are objects. The ML Jesus. Should delve more into outside USA politics. Not sure if you're interested though. Man, dude, it's so much work. I barely keep up with US politics, okay? I hate all this. I hate politics. I just want to be pro-league, okay? Oh, I saw this. Holy shit. This like carnival ride that was like about to tip over. What a ride, dude. Holy shit. Oh. I can't joke about anything anymore. People seem to be missing maybe I can't tell if it's my fault or if there are like so many people trying to like take what I say out of context that I could literally not say anything about this topic anymore. People seem to be taking everything that I'm saying in like the weirdest way. So like people there's that subreddit comment I made. Apparently everybody's linked this in every fucking Discord where somebody's like aren't you posting on Twitter a lot, blah 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 blah, and then I don't remember what they said, and then my response is, well, I'm not cutting myself afterwards, right? I'm not making fun of people who cut. I'm making fun of people that engage with a platform that destroys their mental health, hurts themselves because of it, and then they keep doing it. That's who I'm making fun of. I feel like, but I think people think that I'm just like shitting on all people with mental illness. That's not what I'm doing. I'm making fun of people that are having like severe mental problems and then continuously go back to these platforms over and over and over and over and over again. And you don't need to. So like when people are like, dude, don't you post on Twitter a lot too? Yeah, I do. But I'm not fucking committing suicide because of fucking tweets, right? It's not the same thing. But people seem to be thinking that like, people seem to think that like I'm like shitting on everybody with mental health. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just shitting on people that have like huge mental problems, go to a platform, get worse with their mental problems, and then keep going back. It's so stupid. Oh my god. And then people will call me like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to spend more time talking about why I think is that. Before I get off into that, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with posting on Twitter. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with even being terminally online, because people are like, Destiny, don't you post on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do. But that's because it's fun for me, and I enjoy it, and it's funny. Like, people are at home in their like dark and dingy basements, like rolling their chair around over old crunchy Cheeto dust on the floor, like smashing away at their keyboards, like calling all their friends on Discord. We gotta go ratio Destiny. He did another tweet, and I'm like, I'm like swimming in the keys with Melina, and I'm like, hold on, Mel, I just thought of a banger fucking tweet, and then I fire it off and I put my phone down, and then I go back to swimming, and people are like, well, Destiny, you're online on Twitter a lot too. You're like, yeah, but it's just fun for me. I'm enjoying myself. That's the difference. I'm not having like mental fucking breakdowns related to the platform. I think that if you have like severe mental breakdowns related to Twitter, you just shouldn't be on it. Now, if that sounds ableist to me, or if that sounds, also, I get paid for it. My existence is online. I get paid to like stir shit up and like talk to people. It's my fucking job, literally. Yeah, I'm probably gonna talk. I'll talk more about this, but at this point, I'm screaming into the void. It's not even worth having this conversation. Destiny, as someone with Asperger's, I'm really bothered by this idea of like adopting a mental illness for the sake of it rather than actually working towards improving mental health. I really want to do I want to take a longer look at that DemonMama video, because I feel like a lot of what she said in that video was like kind of the ultimate evolution of where I think, where it feels like a lot of these people are going but wouldn't say out loud, but she actually said it out loud. She did probably what was one of the worst mental health videos of all time, and I only watched like 30 seconds of it. Actually, maybe it gets better. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe it actually gets better. This might be one of the worst videos I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm gonna play like 30 seconds of this. Oh, hold on.
Everybody who had a mental illness, who has a diagnosis for a mental illness, was at one point undiagnosed, and was also at one point self-diagnosed. I'm serious. In fact, that is a good thing, okay? It is a good thing to be able to analyze your own brain, to come to conclusions. Will some people do so poorly? Of course. Their competence is an issue across the board. People can incorrectly self-diagnose themselves. But at the end of the day, the key political takeaway is that we have to. Self-diagnosis is essential to the process of actual medical diagnosis. Self-diagnosis is arguably more important. And we should hope to encourage accurate and helpful self-diagnosis, because how can you possibly get a diagnosis if you're unable to be aware of...
There's like, and I'll go over this in more detail at home, but there is so much in this video that I think is like so key to her underlying thought process, right? Like, how do we get a diagnosis? Your goal isn't to get a diagnosis. Why is that why is that your goal? What does that even mean, right? And then some of the language that she uses later. Hold on. I don't know if it's in this clip. There's only 15 seconds left, but...
your own situation, right? Do you know what that leads to? A world in which only doctors can make declarations about your well-being is a world of asylums and gatekeeping.
Like, listen to how we're using the labels of mental illness here. Like, oh, they're gatekeeping. They're trying to gatekeep my mental illness from me. Like, what? It's not a good thing, my oh, I almost said my guy, but I think that would have been transferred over here. It's not a good, can I say my dude? My person. Like, it's not a good thing. I actually want to go back and like listen to this whole like segment, because I think It isn't worth arguing over this. Lefties would just claim a new definition of self-diagnosis, meaning it just means recognizing the symptoms. Well, like, here's like the real hot takes, okay, my dear. Oh, maybe yeah. I'm trying to think of it. I'm in an airport, so I don't really want to go over this right now. Someone in chat said something that I think is correct, and I think it's like the idea that like neurodivergence has been like a really bad idea. I've said this a million times. Like, we have to be able to recognize parts of ourselves that are bad without hating ourselves. That's really important. But I feel like that line is like unwalkable for so many people. And instead it turns into this rabid acceptance of everything that's not the norm. There are some things that are normal because they're good to be normal. And I know that really bothers people, but like, it's a good thing that your blood has like a regular pH level. It's a good thing that we have like normal hormone profiles for people. It's a good thing that somebody has the ability to clean their body and go to work and go to school and maintain relationships. It's a good thing when you wake up in the morning and you have a general good feeling about the world, right? Like, there are some good things in the world, and not everybody's mind will comport to a lot of these things. And it's okay to recognize, like, hey, this person has problems, but we should still love them. To borrow from my Catholic homies as I was growing up, hate the sin, not the sinner, right? There might be parts or aspects of a person's personality that is maybe a mental illness, that is neurodivergent, that, oh, well, this isn't optimal, but hey, it's okay, you know? But I feel like people are so out there now, in terms of like, everything has to be okay, everything has to be acceptable, everything is valid, nothing needs to be changed, everything is good, everything is celebrated. And it's like, well, no, I don't know if that's the case. There are obvious outliers, right? I don't see any value in getting an autism or ASPD diagnosis because it has zero merit, but getting a diagnosis to say ADHD is very important because it's a necessity for getting medicine for it. Okay, so your goal is not to get a diagnosis, okay? Your goal is not to diagnose anything, right? If you notice some behaviors or if you notice some problems with yourself, then you go and you talk to a professional, you give them a set of like descriptors, you say, hey, I have this. If they feel like it's necessary to diagnose you with something to get you help for your condition, then you get a diagnosis, that's it. But you don't need a diagnosis, you don't have to get a diagnosis, right? Like, I don't know. And then sometimes, like, when I look online, it feels like there are a lot of cissexual, heterosexual, white men on the internet that feel really bad that they don't have any like racial buffs or special classes or cool categories, so they have to end up like inventing a whole bunch of them so that they feel like they can fit in the online world. And I think that's really sad. Like, people have attacked me over like my my non-binary tag so much, and to be honest, I've talked about like feeling like I don't really care if I'm a man, I don't care if I woke up and I was a woman. I've talked about these things for years, maybe for more than 4 or 5 years, way before it was like super cool to put non-binary or NB or whatever the fuck you want to call it in your Twitter profile. I've talked about it for a long time. But to be completely and totally fucking honest, I don't really give a fuck about the non-binary label, and I would actually feel better and like cooler if you could just expand what it means to be like, oh, this is what like a heterosexual man is, and like, oh, it can include these feelings as well, rather than people needing to draw like lines and make new fucking categories for every single fucking thing that they have, you know? Like, I find that that's just super fucking cringe. Like, I feel like it would be way better to just expand categories, be more inclusive for other people, and then you have like quirks about yourself. Like, oh, like I would almost say, maybe it's too much, but like I almost like, oh, like I'm heterosexual, but you know, every now and then I like to suck a dick, you know? I don't even know if I would consider myself bisexual, right? Like, I fucked like this many girls and this, or the other way. Like, I've barely fucked any guys compared to the amount of girls that I've fucked with, right? But like, I guess like technically I'm bisexual, right? But I think it would be even cooler to I'm just saying that like you can expand categories and include more people rather than like having to have like this like I bring up that because I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but I've seen people in their profiles put like 25% lesbian or like 85% whatever. Like, bisexual is not good enough now. It has to be like, now it has to be like a new way of writing it. And I'm like, why? Like, what? I also wanted to take apart that the Dear Girls Twitter thread I thought perfectly encapsulated a lot of the problems that people have. And I super duper I blame myself for this 100%. And they can all pretend that they're not influenced by me or whatever, but I think I set the tone for a lot of the discourse. It's evolved for me, obviously. I'm not like 100% responsible, but I think I set a lot of the early foundation for a lot of this crazy online talking, at least in these like political spheres that I operate in. I think that I engaged in a lot of like and a lot of analysis of a lot of different like categories, I guess we say, like 2, 3, 4 years ago, where it's like, oh, like, well, what does gender mean? But what does sex mean? Blah 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 blah. I did this a lot, but I never really like stopped to be like, hey, I mean, we can disassemble all of these, and we can argue that a lot of these are kind of arbitrary, yeah, sure, but that doesn't mean that they're without merit or without value, or that they don't map onto some underlying reality. And I noticed when I listened to that dear lady tweet, she basically said like, oh, well, I analyzed all of gender and sexuality, and I looked at how they were mapped on, and I realized it was all arbitrary, and it was all fake, and it was all worthless. And I was like, wait, no? Absolutely not. That is absolutely not even close to true. The fact of the matter is, whether you like it or not, 98%, 99% of people in the world comfortably fit perfectly well into the gender binary. Not even the spectrum, into the gender binary of man, woman, masculine, feminine. So for you to come in and say that all of that is just fake and not true, like there's a much higher probability that you're probably missing something than all the rest of society is missing something, you know? Yeah, I don't know, that listening to her like talk about like that level of deconstruction and her inability to synthesize like anything and to build anything back up, they're like, oh, okay, well, you know, personally, I don't like the masculine and feminine dichotomy, but I understand why it exists. I see why it exists. Like, I understand like how blah blah blah. Like that understanding is completely gone. I had a good Twitter thread about it, but I think I got nuked on one of my redacted sprees. But yeah, holy shit. I've repeated this a lot in my last few debates. People are saying like, since gender is a social construct, gender is a social construct. But just because something is socially constructed doesn't mean that it's not real. It doesn't mean that it doesn't map onto some underlying reality. It doesn't mean that it doesn't represent something that exists, that is a fact of the matter of the world. I think that when you say like something is a social construct, what people's mind here is, oh, it's basically fiction. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. And I think a lot of people forget that. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that more when I get home. Yeah. Destiny's Twitter thread before the redact, or its tweet. They go by it pronouns. I'm gonna say them. Because I can't say her. I don't even know. The dearest tweets. Why would I deconstruct gender? Find out that it is an arbitrary method of categorization of expressions around two poles which similarly mean nothing but not the other, and then try to put it back together again. Why would I care to build back a bullshit normalcy? Like, dog, you gotta understand that you are living in a world that is not inhabited by 99.9% of people on the planet, if that's like the answers that you came to. The sad thing too is that like the whole point in engaging in like this level of deconstruction, which I don't think is technically the correct word. Somebody told me, some philosopher told me that, or philosophy person told me that I should be using the terms analysis and synthesis, which is what I'm trying to use more. So analysis is like analyzing something and taking it apart, and synthesis is like putting it back together in a way that makes sense. If you're engaging in these levels of like analysis, but like you're unable to synthesize things, so like you just take everything apart and you just like you analyze everything to death and you don't know why anything is the way that it is, then you haven't actually accomplished anything, right? It's like the difference between like a kid that just like takes apart remote controls all day versus a kid that takes them apart and puts them back together, right? Like these are two, like one of these is incredibly valuable and one of these is utterly worthless trash. There is no value in just deconstructing things infinitely if you're not willing to understand how they work. Do you think in large part, I agree that you're against some of those crazy people on Twitter, but you make yourself look really bad with some tweets. I can see you cultivating a community of not so cool people out there in real time. Honest to God, and I know that sounds really shitty, I would rather cultivate more like center-leaning people at this point than people that are literally gonna have like fucking cry tantrums because like I link like an obesity study to fucking DemonMama. Like, it's way too much. It's like, it's kind of like I walk into a gym and there's like shit smeared all over the fucking walls and people are screeching at each other and like throwing barbells at each other, and then like I leave the bench and I don't put the weights back in the right slots, and then like everybody shows up, they're like, Destiny, you're not treating this area very respectfully. I'm like, I don't care. I'm sorry. I like super don't care. Maybe I'll revisit that in the future, but yeah, like it's like I don't care. It's too much for me right now.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.
Gwen Stefani. Is that really Gwen Stefani spamming the N-word on my YouTube chat? Is that the real Gwen Stefani? Oh my god.